Hello everyone, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to add a slider to your Bootstrap website. You can see in this one I've got my site all set up here. I've got my logo, which isn't much to write home about, and then I've got my content down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make a slider up here instead of just having one logo to have it be a slideshow. And if you want to make you can do that, that's one option, or you could decide to make a slideshow on a certain page of your site. So say for instance on the About Us page, or maybe on the undergrad page or something, you wanted to show a slideshow on that page. You can do one or the other with this tutorial. So first I'm going to show you how to we need some images to put in this slideshow. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my site here. It's called SJMC, and then you'll see all of my Bootstrap files are listed here. Now I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder, and I am going to make it called Images. So it's now called Images. Now I need to put my images in this Images folder. And I'm going to go ahead and grab a few from the MassCom website. I know that there are some already made here that are about the size of banner images, so I'm just going to go ahead and go through here and save them. Now I'm going to make sure again that I save them in the right place, so I'm going to go ahead and go to my SJMC folder, and I'm going to go to my images folder, and now I'm going to go ahead and I'll call this picture welcome. Okay, I'm going to do the same for this one. Save image as news engagement day, and then I'm going to grab another one. I'll do this one for MassCom week. Go ahead and save it, and I'm just going to start with 3 for now. But there you'll see I've got my 3 images. Now obviously if you are making a logo, that will probably end up being the very first image. So I'm going to go ahead and even move my logo into this folder as well. Okay, so my logo.gif is going to also go into my images folder. There we go. So now I've got 4 good slides there that I'm going to use for this. Now one thing I recommend is that each of these slides are the same size. And a very easy way to do that in Photoshop to make sure all of your images are the same size is I'm going to go ahead and just open up an image that is just, say for example, if I had a picture of this nice scene here, and I wanted to turn it into a banner-sized image, what I would do is I would go ahead and click on the 4th tool from the top, which is the crop tool, and up here you're given an option to tell it to be a certain width and height resolution. I'm going to tell it to be about 1,000 pixels wide, and then I'm going to tell it to be a height of probably whatever you chose your logo to be. And so that might be something like 350 pixels, it might be something like 250 pixels, but again you'll have to figure out what size that logo was, and then I'm going to go ahead and press the checkbox. Well, I'll crop it to exactly the place that I want it to go. Go ahead and press the checkbox, and now I can go to File, Save for Web, and I can make sure it's saved as a JPEG because it is an actual image. And let me go ahead and save it. And obviously I'm not going to end up putting this in my slideshow, but if I did, I would go into my SJMC, I'd go to my images folder, and I would call it something like students or something like that, and go ahead and press save. Now I could also just go ahead and do the exact same thing. Open, let me go find another image here, and I could do the very same thing by just going to any other image. Say it's, I guess I have a lot of food images on here. Go ahead, open it up, and already it's set to be cropped at 1,000 by 350. I didn't have to do anything else. Now I would just kind of reframe that, do the little checkbox, and again do the File, Save for Web. So it's a very easy process to make sure that every image is the same size. Once you set these width and height dimensions in Photoshop, then you can go ahead and just click the crop tool, click your image once, and it's already set to be this grid. Now, if you are making a slideshow that's not on your logo area, you can see I'm making one for this, but if you wanted to make a slideshow down here instead or on a certain page, then I recommend going with a width and height of about 800 by 600. That'll make sure that all of your images are a good landscape size, and you can do that. Okay, so either go with the 1000 by about 250 or 350 or whatever you had set your logo to, or go ahead and crop them to about 800 by 600. Of course, you can pick any size you want to, just make sure they're all the same size. So once I've got all my images cropped and saved in my images folder and saved for the web, I'm going to go ahead and delete that student. Well, I'll leave it in there, why not? Now I need to go into my Bootstrap index file and decide where I'm going to put this. Now I'm going to do a tutorial here on how to show you how to put this in the logo area. And then I'll show you later how to put it into a certain page. So I recommend just kind of starting here, right where your body opens, and formerly where you had your logo image. You can see it's right here. I'm going to go ahead and take that out, okay, because I don't really want that messing up my code right now. I want to give myself some room to build out my slideshow. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is, actually before I get started with my index page, I'm going to go into my custom CSS. Okay, and this is something that we had created earlier. I am going to add a couple new divs to this file. The first class that it's actually a class that I'm going to add is called Slide Container. Okay, Slide Container, and I'm going to make sure that has a width of 100%. That's going to make sure all of my images are 100% of the size of the container that it's in, and then I'm going to go ahead and make this next class to tell all my images to be 100% as well, as long as I spelled it right. Okay, so now I've added a slide container class, made sure that it has a width of 100%, and then I added an item class and an image tag at a width of 100% as well. Okay, now that those are set, I am going to start actually coding them in. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to start coding in this slide container div. So div class equals slide container. That's exactly what I just coded in my CSS. I'm going to go ahead and close it. Okay, so all my images are going to be basically in this, and really everything that's in this site is going to be in here. Now I'm going to go ahead and code in my image source equals welcome, and that'll be my very first slide that I'm going to provide within this slideshow. I'm going to give it some alt text, and I'm not going to fill that in right this second, and then some title text, because every image needs those elements. Okay, and I'm going to do that a few times. So I've got my welcome, add another one here, add another one, and I'll just do 3 to start. Although for this assignment, I want you guys to, let me add another one. I want you to have 5 total for this assignment. Okay, so obviously this one is going to be called, the next one, actually the first one will be called logo, right? The next one will be MC Week. I'll put the next one as welcome, and then news engagement. Okay, so now I've really got 4 images listed here. Okay, and your alt and title text should be corresponding to that particular image. Now, right after my slide container div opens, I'm going to go ahead and add another div. And this div is going to be div ID equals image carousel. And then I'm going to give it the class of carousel slide. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and add yet another div. and div class equals carousel inner. Okay, and that div is actually what's going to be containing all of my 4 images. And now I'm going to go ahead and close that here. Okay, so you see that I've created within my slide container div, I've created 1, 2 more divs, and now I've closed them here. Close, close. And of course I need to make sure that my slide container is also closed. So that should be pretty self-explanatory here. I've got div open, div open, div open, close, close, close. Okay, so that's pretty much how it should look. Now all of my images, again, are within this carousel inner class. And now what I want to do is let's go ahead and test it out. I'll go ahead and save it and refresh. And right now all of my images should be showing up, but they're not. So I made a mistake. And my mistake was that I did not tell it to go inside this images folder to find the images. Because right now it's in my index and it's looking for those 4 images out here in my SJMC folder. But I forgot to mention that it has to go in this images folder and then it will find them. So that's why it can't find them yet. So each of these actually has to say images / and then the file name. Needs the right directory. Save those. Now I can refresh, and there they are. Now if they're all listed, that's great. I mean, it doesn't look the best, it does not look correct, but trust me, it will work in a minute. Now I need to go ahead and make a div class equals item for each one of my images. Okay, so each image will have its own div class equals item, because each of these images are going to be a different item listed out. You can see I've opened them all. Now I'm going to make sure they're all closed. So 4 more divs. Now one unique thing about this first item is that it's not just going to be an item, but it's going to be item active. Okay, so that means this is the slide that's going to start first. Okay, and also when I went in my custom CSS, that's exactly what I did here. I said if there's a class of item and if there's an image there, make sure those widths are all 100%. And that's exactly what's happening. If there's an image tag in the div class item, these are all going to now be 100%. So now if I refresh, you can see that now they're there, they're just hidden. Okay, so they are there. And at this point, your 4 images, or however many you're using, should now be all compiled into 1. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I have some controllers that can move this thing around. So I've got my carousel inner here, and that's all listed out. Looks great. Now after this div closes is where I'm going to start coding in my controller buttons. So a class equals left carousel control, href equals #image carousel data slide equals prev. And then I'm going to go ahead and close that tab. So what I basically told it to do was I said create a link, and when you click on that link, go to the next slide, or the previous slide, because this will be the left, right? The left side. So it's going to create a left arrow. Now inside of here is where I need to actually type in my glyph icon for an arrow. So if you're familiar with Bootstrap, or if you've made any glyph icons yet, you'll notice that this is the code for that. So class equals span class equals icon prev, and then I'm going to go ahead and close that span. So this is the code for the glyph icon, and you can see it's the icon previous. Now I'm going to grab this and I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it right below. So now I have 2 of the exact same thing, but instead of having a left and a left, I'm going to make sure this next one says right. And instead of saying prev, I'm going to say next. Go ahead and save it. and I can refresh, and now I've got my right and my left buttons, and it actually moves. That's wonderful. You can see how some of these are the right size, some of them are not, so you're going to have to make sure and crop them all to the exact same size and resave them, but it is working. Now the very last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that it's got those buttons at the bottom. You ever see those little like dots in the bottom? You can kind of move them around a little bit. I'm going to do that by creating a list, okay, an ordered list. And I'm going to make it 4 list items long because that's how many I have. And that is basically an ordered list right there. Now instead of just the OL, I need to give it a certain class. And so this class is carousel indicators. And now that means that this is not just an ordered list, but now it has converted itself into a carousel indicator list. And now I've got to give some attributes and values to my list items. Data target equals image carousel. Data slide to equals 0. And then class, and I'm just going to leave it there. So basically what I just told it to do is I said, make this a carousel indicator list, and then I told this first list item that when that first bullet pops up, it's going to make it go to the 0 data slide, the 0 slide. And the reason we have 0 is because 0 counts, meaning it's going to basically go to the first one. And instead of saying 1, 2, 3, 4, it's actually starting at 0. So make sure you have it set to data slide to 0 so that it actually, when it's clicked on, it goes to the very first one instead of anything else. So now I've just basically copied that list item, these attributes and values, and now instead of the second one being a 0, it's going to be 1. Third one's going to be 2, and the fourth one's going to be 3. So 0 counts, okay? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, but they're listed as 0, 1, 2, 3. So there still are 4 slides. Now this first one, I'm going to want to make sure it is a class of active, and that means it's obviously going to be the first slide. So let me save it, refresh, and now I've got 4 buttons, and they each correspond to a different slide, and when I click on them, they actually work. Now the very last thing that I'm going to want you guys to do in this particular project is that you're going to have to add at least 1 caption. Okay, and captions should appear within your images. Now you see that I've got a class of item active. That means this first one will be the active one. But I'm going to go ahead and give myself some space here to actually add a new caption. So div, and you'll notice that this code is happening right after my image closes. Before that div closes, I'm going to give myself some room and say div class equals carousel caption. And now I can give it, an H4 and say something like welcome. And then a paragraph that says something like something that is intuitive of whatever you're doing. Okay, so you see that I've got my div class item, I've got my image. Now I've added this new, tab it over so it's a little bit easier to understand. Carousel caption, got my H4. I'm going to make sure that I close it. And now this is closing my item. Okay, so there's a lot of divs happening here. Now instead of this one being opening the item and closing it, right, I would add my caption in right here, just like I did for the one before it. Grab that code and paste it in. Okay, just make sure everything you open you also close, and don't get too confused with all these divs happening, but basically I created a caption there. So let me go ahead and save it, and now my captions should be popping up. There it is. Obviously they would be different captions, these are the same. And some other things that you could do within your custom CSS is maybe you want to customize the caption. Okay, you can do that. That's what your custom CSS is there for. I can make carousel caption, and I could have it have a background color of black, and then I could, you'll see that when I do that, now it's got this big black background. Okay, and you can change the font color. If you wanted to change the font color to blue, doesn't look that great, but you could also change the font color of your caption. Okay, so you can do all that within your custom CSS. Alright, and that's pretty much how you make a slideshow. Now what's due, I want you guys to have 5 slides instead of 4, and I want you to make sure that all of your alt text and make sure that all of your title text are unique. So that's how you basically create a slideshow in Bootstrap. Now this was to show you how to do a banner, right? If I wanted to take all this stuff that I just coded, I could copy it, and let's say, for example, instead of doing a banner, I wanted to make, you know, maybe my grad page. It shows a table right now. But maybe, for example, let me go to my undergrad page, or let's say my about page, about us, right? If I wanted to have my slideshow be there, all I would have to do would be go into that particular page and paste in this entire slide container, which I have selected here, right within my 8-column div. Okay, so this can happen right within a content on a specific page. If you want it to be like half of a certain div or just half of your page, that's where you could change that here. So right now in my custom CSS, I could change my slide container, which contains all of my pictures, and I could make it something like 50%. So now you can see it's only 50%. All right, so obviously that second image isn't working right now, but you get the point. Okay, so that's in a nutshell how you create a slideshow on your Bootstrap site.